So our topic for today is that this MBA has no backbenchers. What we're going to explore today is how does an MBA program, and we're going to talk about an MBA from Fortune Institute of International Business, how does this make our students immersive, participative, and transformative? My name is Indrajit Lahiri. I've got 30 years plus of experience, but now I'm a professor, and I think that's the title, which is a professor of practice. I have with me people who live this every day. So may I kindly spotlight Dr. Sahiba Sahny.
Hi everyone, I am Dr. Sahiba Sahny, as Professor Negi just introduced. I am a professor of marketing.
Also introduce a fellow professor, Dr. Rubal Rathi.
I'm Dr. Rubal Rathi. I also am a marketing area faculty at FIIB.
Thank you. And we have two students, Swati Baheti.
I am Swati Baheti, first year PGDM student with major in marketing and minor in operation.
And last but not the least, Jayant Negi.
I am a core marketing student, which means my major and minor both are in marketing.
It's a good mix between two experienced faculty who care about students, and soon you're going to find out how we tackle nuances in this topic, and two students who are constantly engaging in our journey as FIIB tries to get into this topic of what does backbenchers mean.
Backbenchers essentially, as you know, we've defined throughout our school days, are students who like to be quiet ones, or probably even the naughty ones who like to be at the last benches of the classroom, maybe trouble the professor and not participate much. But honestly, as the webinar is titled, there are no backbenchers here at FIIB, because the attempt is to make a very inclusive classroom and a very safe space for students to kind of participate, feel belong to the classroom. So that is what my definition of no backbenchers at FIIB is.
See, the way I look at it is it has more than having to do with the physical last row being occupied by the backbenchers, literally. I feel it is more to do with the mindset. People who choose comfort over challenging themselves, people who come to class with an attitude that others can take the conversation forward. We are just here as passive listeners. And even if you are literally in the first row, you can do that. So some people, and again, it is not about quiet students. They can be people who are very, very active listeners, may not contribute directly in a class, but still have that mindset. So, I mean, we cannot classify them as backbenchers, but it is people who are passive in absorbing what is being discussed, what is being talked about, and then graduating with knowledge, but I feel no voice.
I have always been a backbencher. From my school days to my graduation, and even in the beginning of FIIB, I was always a backbencher. And physically talking, even till date, I'm a backbencher. In terms of engagement, I have changed a lot once I came to FIIB, because I didn't feel that judgment that I might have gotten after a wrong answer or after a funny question that was the answer to which might have been obvious to everyone. But yeah, sticking with the question, I've always been a backbencher.
As soon as I started my PGDM journey here at FIIB, it was not a MBA program. Rather, it was a corporate simulation where we were expected that whatever we learn, we are trained to the best and we perform the best in the corporate environment. As soon as I came to FIIB, the first day expectation was very clear. Here you all are not the listener, but you are the participants and you will have to contribute. This is something which made me stressed initially, but the way I got support from my professor, the way I got the guidance, I think it has transformed me. Earlier, I was active listener. Now I think I can speak with confidence without the fear of judgment.
And I can vouch for that, because
Yeah,
she's an active participant in my consumer behavior classroom, so I can vouch for that.
Can you talk about one incident that might explain how this change is happening inside you?
So recently, I was a part of a corporate mentorship program where we all are trained under the corporate mentor and we get our opportunity to interact with them and to present our idea. Coming from the educational background where we are just sitting in the classes, just writing down the notes, not participating much. But when you come to FIIB and you get this kind of opportunity where you are interacting with the professionals, it is very new to me. Initially, I was very afraid, like, what will they judge me about? Will I be able to do or not? But the platform this college has given me has totally transformed my mindset. That it is not about you will be wrong. It's all about how much you try, how much are you active, and you grab the opportunity.
a norm that we have here at FIIB is to provide students what is called the pre-reads, because the students are expected to read and understand the basics about the topic before they enter the classroom, so that they are active participants in the classroom rather than passive listeners in the classroom. And yes, of course, I have definitely experimented and successfully executed flipped classrooms at FIIB. So how it works is, I'm sure Swati and Jayant already know this, that we would already in advance give out handouts to the students so that they are aware about what is going to be discussed in the class. They have the basic understanding of, let's say, the concepts and the theories. And the purpose of the classroom is to be able to take them to higher order thinking, where we talk about applicative applications of these concepts, maybe let's say through a case study or a class activity, and sometimes even situations where they take the spotlight in the classroom and actually become the teachers and teach the rest of the classrooms. So there are different formats of flipped classrooms, and depending upon the suitability of topic, we've experimented with different types of flipped classrooms.
See, the idea of a flipped classroom is to have student take the onus of delivering the topic. Now, it might not naturally come to a lot of students, and they will have to be brought out of their comfort zones, right? They will have to be in uncomfortable situations. So, and there's a gradual process to it. So they might be. So what I do is generally I start with a group presenting, so that so that one student is not in the spotlight. But yes, of course, depending on the strengths that they bring to the table within the peer group, you identify some are very comfortable, some are not. And when their peers cross question them, they don't have anything to fall back on. They don't have their notes, and that is when the real challenge comes into play. So to sum it up, I would say that it is a gradual process, starting with a larger group and then coming to individual students in flipped model, because they have to be familiarized. And instead of cold calling students again, I tell them in advance that this is something that you will have to deliver, so they come prepared with it.
Actually, the thing is, in this semester, I'm not being taught by either of them. But in the last semester, I was a student to both of them at the same time. Fateh sir, he's an amazing professor of marketing again, and he teaches me for what Sahiba is teaching Swati, CBI, consumer behavior inside. Fateh sir's classes are full of activities, flipped classrooms, so much, a lot of it. So the last one I was involved in would be interim presentation, in which we had to prepare a lot of things like the persona. We had to select a brand. We had to select the background of the brand, everything related to it. And we then had to sell that presentation, not just to Fateh sir, but to the whole class. Because the whole class had a lot of questions, million questions for a 10-minute presentation, and then
No, no,
defending it.
that's a sorry, that's a very good input. In fact, maybe Swati, you also went through the same feeling, but perhaps a question to you, Swati. So, do you think that this is more like a teaching style? Does it depend on the personality who's delivering it, or it's more like you feel that within FIB, and now you finished almost 1 year, right? Have you seen this consistently being played out, Swati?
Starting with this flipped classroom concept, this was first concept which I've seen in your class. That was our first day. The time you introduced the flip book, which came to our class, that was the first time I saw this, and you introduced the concept. But I, being the student of all of you three, Indrajit sir, Rubal ma'am, and Sahiba ma'am, I think in each and every classes, this concept is applied in their own way. Like if I talk about Sahiba ma'am classes, it is full of interaction, it is full of examples. They are not expected that if ma'am is telling anything, you will be a listener. Ma'am tries to engage everybody, that everybody will have to give their own perspective, think differently, put on their examples. Talking about Rubal ma'am class, it's not only about digital marketing. She might take the topic from theory to practical. She always listens to our input, then she tries to build upon it. If we are wrong, she'll gently correct it. So that is very safe space to speak. Talking about your class, when we discuss the case study, sometimes we go beyond the case study to corporate world. So that is always very interactive, because I have been the student of all three. Styles are different, but the intent is the same, to bring the student out of their comfort zone.
One thing that has actually helped a lot of students is reiterating again and again that your classroom is a safe space.
Hmm.
Feel free to make mistakes over here. We will help you rectify them, but don't be embarrassed of your mistakes. It's absolutely, I often tell them that, if you're making mistakes, it shows us that you're still thinking. You're not dependent on GPTs. You have an intellect of your own. But if you're not answering at all, that reflects poorly on your intellect. So there's a lot of encouragement given to the students to kind of speak up. And you were talking about backbenchers. Well, yes, sometimes making them feel safe in the classroom automatically kind of encourages them to speak. But there are also times where, you'll have to nudge and very
Exactly.
gently, not putting the student in the spotlight, but maybe just encouraging them and pushing them to
I,
be.
as a teacher, how are we going to make sure that there's merit in many types of thinking? There's nothing called right and wrong. How
Yeah.
do you bring out an on-the-spot knowledge assimilation for people who are perhaps a little afraid to speak? Perhaps they have not prepared for. Let's say that case of Jayant, and he hadn't prepared in Fateh sir's class for a particular topic just because the previous evening he was emceeing a big program. Now that can happen to all of us. So how, as a teacher, would you find this out, and what are the steps you would do to make sure everybody is really
I'll,
in the
I'll, I'll
party?
give you what I do.
Yeah, yeah.
There are always a few students who, because of some reason or the other reason, would not be prepared with the pre-readings of the class. So let's say if you're doing a case study, we always start by briefing about the case study so that we're sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of their understanding of the case study. Now that helps a lot of students because even the ones who did not read it now have an
Up
understanding
to
of,
speed.
what are we talking about. Then the second thing is that yes, there will be students who are well prepared and who will probably speak up a lot. Swati would vouch for it. There's so many times she's raised hand and I've said, no, you are not allowed to speak. Let me give a chance to another one. And what I have noticed is that even the students who don't show their hands, once you nudge them gently, they have the right answers. So it is just the gentle encouragement that is needed. And I think over the course of years of having taught students, I've kind of understood this that you nudge them gently and they will have the right answers.
Absolutely, I totally second what Dr. Sahiba has just said. And on top of it, sometimes the most silent ones who look silent, they come up with the most bright and brilliant
Brilliant
ideas.
ideas. I agree with you.
Yeah, they just need that nudge. And it is again the onus of the faculty to identify those students because they might not be very comfortable speaking publicly. But again, as an MBA program, we are preparing them for a corporate career. And you have to be visible to be able to, make it. And we have seen a lot of students who were very, very afraid of speaking up in classes to how the professors pushed them and how they performed in their, group discussions for their placements and their final placement interviews, etc. So this, as much as the program is a knowledge transfer or a knowledge enhancement from the time you join till the time you graduate, it is also that confidence that you have to, develop. It is also the confidence to put yourself out there, the confidence to share your thoughts, share your opinions. All of that also matters, and I think the starting point is the classroom, and hence flipped classroom, and hence other experiential learning activities.
Right, we in FIIB we have this concept, and to students who are watching, there's this beautiful concept called a forward action plan, by which students, with the help of their mentors, either the faculty mentors or outside mentors, they identify a few very important areas that they should be improving. And let's say I'm a student and I'm a little shy, like a lot of people are, and we identify that. Now, how do you weave in, Jayant, how have you seen it work for you? Compare from term one to term three, since you finished 3 terms, of perhaps having an FAP, a forward action plan, and getting an opportunity to work on that FAP. Has that really helped you, Jayant?
Yes, definitely having an FFP has helped me a lot. Most importantly, because every student in FIIB is assigned a mentor, right? With whom we get to discuss our FAPs every now and then. For me personally, in term one, I didn't take FAPs too seriously. I wrote anything down with it and went to my mentor, Dr. Taween Nagra, for presenting it. That is when she pointed out that many problems that I have written. So basically, in that, we had to write what we're working on, how the goal is going, and what is our input. many problems that I had written out of my unseriousness were things that I didn't have to write. For example, she herself mentioned that I didn't have to write having a vocabulary lesson in it because my English is fluent enough for an MBA program. I should rather focus on my concepts of marketing that might help me not in this term but in the future term. FFP not only helped me actually quantify my goals and find out where I stand, but also what problems do I have? It helped me find those problems.
So in FEP, my first thing which I wrote was that I'm very hesitant to speak. I have kind of glossophobia that I fear when I publicly speak, I get very conscious. So this was the first thing. And other what I found in initial classes that I do speak, but I need to work heavily on my content. And I curated that FAP, and my mentor wonderfully she guided me what I need to do. For vocab, she suggested me like read newspaper, learn 5 vocab daily. And for content building, she suggested me you guys use Instagram, social media every time. Listen to a podcast every week. Don't go to and listen to podcast every day, but just a week also if you're going to listen, that will help you build. And I saw this when I followed the guidelines given by my mentors. I found that it was really useful. And I think that I have been using in my class now. And I wish to further improve more.
Like all of us know, we have a maybe a 90-minute classroom where we talk about some topic and we have mastery over that topic. But as you enter the corporate, and soon you're going to find that out that there are obviously no space for backbenchers in the corporate, which is why this topic is so important for MBA aspirants. Now, have you ever faced the in your discussion during your corporate training, with whatever limited experience that you've had so far in your internship programs?
So if talking about this thing, yeah, I've often made mistakes in the class, and I think I've made mistakes many times, not a single time, but generally I tend to say, and I might be wrong. But then it's not that I get stressed now because I was uncomfortable at the first moment because that was my first time. But again and again, if you're put in the spotlight, you get used to it, and then you learn how to improve on it. So this has eventually transformed. Whenever I feel that I'm wrong, I gently ask the question, where am I wrong? And I get the feedback, which is something I can work upon. So I think this is a very smooth process which goes here in this college. Wherever you are wrong, you will not be judged on any parameters. Rather, you will be corrected so that you could improve and see the result.
Definitely had cases where students have been in disagreement with what I've said, and there have been times where I've kind of said, okay, yeah, maybe I'll have to go back and check in terms of what am I saying, and you also sound correct over here. So we appreciate when students challenge us. Another thing that, kind of you mentioned that when students don't have answers to questions when they're in their internships, we prepare them to have those answers, and we prepare them through the kind of material we give them to read. And we've kind of also realized that reading is something that probably, this generation doesn't like. So we don't only give them reading material, we give them a lot of podcasts as well. Good universities like podcasts that are hosted by Stanford or Harvard, for them to understand concepts, because I think that the generation listens more and is able to understand more by listening than by reading. So we've adapted in terms of what we're providing them also, so that they have the right answers when it comes to, let's say, an interview or an internship.
Marks for attendance, I think not just me, I think all of us have done away with, because even if you're physically present, you might be mentally absent. And Swati would attest to it for this term and Jayant for the previous term. A lot of times I say that I will not give you marks only for physical attendance. You have to be mentally here in my class, right? And also to answer to the question and taking from what Swati said and what Dr. Sahiba had said, the idea is for them to start thinking and thinking critically, because all of it, a lot of what we are teaching today may or may not be applicable as is when they join the corporate world. So for them to be able to make those arguments, to contest as they do in classes, that is something that we actively encourage, because that is when everything else is kept aside, all the theory is kept aside, and they are critically thinking and making those arguments.
Do you find this reflecting in an auditorium full of students? Do you find a lot of students are inquisitive, wanting to get to ask or cornering the person at the end of the session? And maybe I'll also have a view from Jayant after this. So have you felt that, Dr. Rubal?
In fact, the last masterclass that I had for digital marketing, I called somebody from the agency side and decided on doing it in a podcast format. I had certain questions. He had, we were having a conversation, but more than us, it was the students who were pitching in, raising hands, having those conversations, and all very, very good, very, very relevant questions. Because the students have also started to think, and now that they're in term three, they have a little more maturity from the time that they had just come in. So they look at everything from an outcome lens. If we learn this, what is the application of it? If we do this today, how will we be able to use it moving forward in our careers or for our internships, etc. So yes, the kind of questions that they've been asking across term 2 and term 3, that has significantly matured.
It's absolutely wonderful to use student experiences. I also teach international marketing, and I vividly remember I had a student in the last term who had about a couple of years of experience in hotel management. And, when we talk about international marketing, we talk about a lot of cross-cultural adaptation in terms of how guests are treated across different countries. We talk about a lot of power distance. And the student was able to bring in a lot of learning in terms of what he had experienced, the kind of instructions he was told in terms of how the guests are to be treated. So you bring their learnings in the classroom and allow everybody else to learn through that. A lot of time, a lot of experiences are also brought in from their internships. So when we talk about fifth semester or fourth semester students, they've already gone through an experiential program, and they would have had experiences which we are able to link back to concepts that we teach in class. So, for example, a lot of these students get into internships that are related to sales, and we are, now understanding that how behavioral insights is becoming a very significant aspect of how most companies are operating. They're trying to understand people at a behavioral lens. So we try and integrate the kind of resistance probably they saw with one of their clients, and kind of introspect how a behavioral science lens could have been brought in this situation, which would have helped you overcome the resistance from the client. So yes, we do associate our teachings with their experiences.
So question to students, right? Jayant, how about I go with you? Attention span, shrinking or evolving?
Evolving at.
How about Swati? Students today, distracted or dynamic?
Dynamic. When you are here at FIIB in classroom, distractions are not entertained. So dynamic.
Okay, so to Dr. Sahiba, I think more learnings happen in debates or in reflection.
I think reflection.
A very difficult question for you, Dr. Rubal. There is silence in your class. Is that comfort or is that a concern?
Concern, big concern.
Can I
Depending
just
on what time in the class. When I start off, not for the first 25 minutes, maybe later after they have something to do, something to think about, then yes.
Students who are primarily using AI to prepare versus students who are pivoting off AI as a jumping board. How do you differentiate between them, and how do you how do you encourage the rest of the class to come along with knowledge not only on AI but independent thinking as well?
I think AI should be used. I am in support of that, but should be used wisely. It is not that you are not giving your self-reflection, because AI can do everything. AI can summarize, AI can make your report. And it is not about how much knowledge you have, but it's about how you portray it, how you put it up, and what you show. That is only the difference.
So, Jan, then grades or growth, which is more important?
Definitely growth.
Your CGPAs I've been looking at. Thank you for bringing this webinar to life, and to many, many students who are seeing it. You will experience it all when you join FIIB. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Indrajit.